Hi there, and welcome to the Rider Position Fix-It Show, where we discuss riding position topics and share ideas and exercises to help you and your riders. We are pleased to welcome today Susan E. Harris. Hi, Susan. How are you doing today?
Hi, nice to be here.
Susan E. Harris is a renowned horse person, artist, riding instructor, and international clinician who conducts centered riding clinics and anatomy and motion demonstrations. She's the author and illustrator of Horse Gaits, Balance and Movement, Horsemanship in Pictures, Grooming to Win, the U.S. Pony Club Manuals of Horsemanship, and many more. Susan apprenticed with Sally Swift, the founder of Centered Riding. And Susan also teaches clinics in centered riding, anatomy and motion, and equine and rider biomechanics. Thank you so much for joining us today, Susan.
Thank you.
Where are you coming in from, by the way?
I'm coming in from Cortland, New York, right in the middle of New York State.
How are things in New York State today? Did you get much rain yesterday?
Yeah, we had big thunderstorms, and today it's cool and breezy instead of hot and muggy, which is really nice.
Right. Yes. All right. And I'm Laura Kelland-May, Equestrian Canada senior judge, hunter, jumper, equitation and hack, and senior steward and competition coach specialist. And I'd like to welcome you here as well. Now, Randy may be joining us a little later. She got held up, but she'll be here a little later. If you're
Mhm.
watching live, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch us live. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. Really appreciate you watching us. Now, if you know somebody who you think should be here watching and getting these little tidbits of information about your riding position, please share this broadcast with whoever it is that you think should be here because we'd love to have people here discussing it. And also, Susan, you like to have people comments and questions?
Oh, absolutely. We'll try
Yeah,
to
so
make
if
sure
you
we have question time, so send them in.
yeah, if you have questions or comments, please put it in the question or comment box below this broadcast window, I guess you call it. And we'd be happy to direct those questions to Susan and get some answers for you. If it's about your own position or if you have a student or something that's been bothering you, maybe we could help you out with that. So we
Mhm.
got a full show today. Last time, oh yes, Susan was here Friday, and I found that we were just rushing. So we are going to really take some time to go in and answer questions if you have any. So please feel free to answer questions. All right. So our first topic. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready, Susan?
Oh, yes.
Okay. The hollow back.
Oh,
How does it impact the connection between horse and rider? Now, first of all, before we discuss that, where do you see the hollow back? I know where I see it as a judge in the hunter ring. I know where I see the hollow back. Where do you see the hollow back?
well, I see it everywhere because I see hunters, jumpers, equitation riders, and of course, I also see riders in other disciplines, dressage and Western. But hollowback is really common, especially in hunters. And one reason is if you go way, way back in ancient history, when Federico Caprilli invented the hunter seat, or the modern jumping seat, we should say, he was an Italian cavalry officer in the late 1800s. And of course, all he had was men. There were no ladies riding side saddle in the Italian cavalry. And if anybody has ever taught men versus women, what do male beginners often do when they sit? They slouch, right?
Right.
And some of that is because they really don't want to hit the front of the saddle, but also the male anatomy, your pelvis, a male pelvis is higher, narrower, and the seat bones are closer to parallel together like the runners of a rocking chair. So it's really easy for guys to rock back on their hip pockets. Now, female anatomy, we have a pelvis that is not quite so high, wider. The opening at the bottom is more round. There's good, reasons for that. And our seat bones are more nearly at a 90-degree angle. So anatomically, it's a lot easier for women and girls to tip forward on the front of their seat bones, and it's easier for guys to tip forward on the back. Hey, there's Randy. Good to see you.
Hey, everybody. Sorry, I had a little bit of a power outage.
That's all right. We're glad you're here.
Ew.
So since it's easy for so many riders today are girls and women, it's really easy for us to tip forward on the front of the seat. Now, getting back to old Caprilli, he had all male cavalry recruits, and if you tell a guy who is slouching, arch your back a little, you get somebody who sits up with a nice straight back. Now, if you fast forward to today and you say that to a class that's mostly girls and women and say arch your back a little, we get hollow backs and perching riders.
Right.
So while historically it's what every jumping instructor has said to beginners or riders ever since Caprilli, you have to be careful how you use that advice and not just make it a generic thing you say to everybody.
Yeah, so I was going to say, yes, I see it a lot in the hunter and equitation. I think it's, as you say, some instructors do say, have your back, maybe they say have your back flat, and it's construed as being concave almost.
Well, you also have people who do this unconsciously when they walk, stand, sit. They don't know they do it. And it's a problem. It's also a problem with tension. And for some people, especially beginning riders, it can be a problem with weak core muscles.
Okay.
The other thing is, I won't say there's no such thing as a guy who hollows their back, because yes, that can happen with either, and there are women who can round their back, but by and large, it's much more common to see really hollow backs in women and girls and slouchers in guys. But if you have weak core muscles, it doesn't matter what your gender is, it's real easy to let your belly drop, especially when you get into a 2-point position.
That's right. And for years they taught the crotch seat. Remember that? And it's still you still see it happening. It's usually only in the lower levels of the shows, but they're still teaching that.
What's the crotch seat?
What they told us. What's when you perch on the front of your seat bones with a hollow back.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we have the first that's the word I'm looking for.
Illustration, yes.
Illustration.
Yeah. Well, there's the anatomy of the hollow back. And the other thing I should say is hollow back is not a good idea, not only for your own back, because it'll get you, but also for your horse. Because when you hollow your back, you cannot help but it mechanically tightens up your hip joints. That sends tension to other places in your body. And the tension that your horse feels means you can't go with his movements smoothly. And it's apt to make horses either kind of antsy and uncomfortable, or they may just shrug their shoulders and go, oh, she's doing it again, and kind of check out. But it certainly doesn't get the best movement out of your horse.
I think that's really important to mention too, Susan. A lot of riders don't understand, and hopefully their trainers do, how much of an impact their riding position has on the horse. Yeah. You know, it shortens their steps, so they take short, choppy steps, and that just throws the rider even more out of their riding position.
Yeah. So if you don't have to be in the perfect position, but the better balanced you are and the more functional your position, the more the motion goes through your body and the more freely your horse can move. And if you were posing even in the perfect position without a hollow back, but if you were posing like what I call a cookie cutter rider, they look like a gingerbread rider who has been baked a little too long. Right. And if you are posing even in a perfect pose as a cookie cutter rider, your horse is going to go, oh my God, she's doing it again. And your horse will get inhibited and stiff and tight. And you can't go with the flow and get the best movement out of your horse until you are free to move in your joints.
So I see in this illustration here, you've got the red marks at the hollow of the back, but then you also have it at the back of your neck. So can you, when you hollow your back, do you also tense up through the back of your neck?
Well, if you look at the spine there, you'll see that it has S curves. We have one later that has a correct position, but your spine has S curves. And you couldn't get rid of those curves if you wanted to. You certainly shouldn't. So the top of your neck has the same curve, or the neck itself has the same forward curve as your lower back. And then your shoulders have a backward curve, and your sacrum and tailbone have the same curve. Whatever happens in your neck tends to show up in your lower back, and whatever happens in your lower back tends to show up in your neck. So those places correspond. And if you have a hollow back, you probably have what I call a crunched neck. It's a little bit like a horse going above the bit. And how smoothly and well does a horse above the bit move?
Let me think for a minute. So I'm doing it while I'm here. So I'm, hollowing my back and trying to do that. So it's like a wave.
Right.
If you sit in your chair and you stick your chin out and you crunch the back of your neck, you basically assume a position like a vulture. Can you feel it in your lower back?
Yeah.
So it goes.
Should have done more sit-ups this morning, I guess.
Oh, you just don't want to become a vulture.
Okay.
In this rider, you can see we definitely have a hollow back, and of course, I wanted to exaggerate it enough that people can really see the difference. Heels are down, knees are in the right place, but oh boy, we got a hollow back. The other thing is that when you do this, hollowing your back mechanically tightens up, if not totally locks, your seat or your hip joints. So a rider with a hollow back is going to have a lot of trouble folding and unfolding, going smoothly with the horse, changing their upper body angle smoothly. So we need to find the spot where your hip joints work freely, or you can't get with your horse. You also don't have good springs with a hollow back, as the stiffness takes over. So when you land, it's going to be a jar. Could we look at the good back now?
Yep. Is that the good back?
So here it's, that's the good back. Here again, you can see the, and here the back does have those S curves, and some people have little slightly bigger curves than others. But what we want is not to exaggerate those S curves, and often what causes that is tight muscles in your lower back. So if your muscles tighten up across your lower back, you wind up getting more curves than you really need, or if you have a very tight neck. Now, notice that this rider is looking forward. I should have put an arrow on the eyes, but I stuck a skull in there and I forgot. So this rider is looking forward, and that is, that's exactly what we want to see. Now, if we could flip back to the other rider for a second, the hollow back rider. That rider's looking forward, but notice she has stuck her chin way out.
Right here.
And that's something that and that really crunches the neck. Now, the real problem is, how do I keep my spine long and free and still look ahead? So what we want to think is long spine. You notice that this rider has a short spine. I wish we could put them side by side, but we can flip back and forth between them. So this rider has a short spine because of the shortened neck and the shortened hollow back. Now, if we go back to the good picture, you'll see that rider has a long spine.
One moment, please. There.
Okay. Long through the tailbone, long through the neck, and that lets the spine have its own natural curves, but not exaggerated. So if you go to, let's say we had even shorter stirrups, and we had this rider, Friday we were talking about the idea of letting your seat sink backwards.
Right.
Not enough to hit the saddle, but your tailbones go backwards. Having that long spine will let that happen. Also, this rider is free to fold more or less, fold or unfold or adjust body angle at the hip joint. And because she has a long neck, she can look forward without crunching her neck. So one of the things we as instructors should not be telling people is stick your chin out, because that crunches the neck, and that starts up the cycle of stiffness. Look ahead is good. Look level is good.
Yes, so that's yes, looking ahead is good. And so how does this impact the connection between the horse and rider?
Well, the horse is going to react to your stiffness and your timing. And a hollow back is going to give you both stiffness and it will slow down your timing. So you could be standing up ahead of the horse to take out insurance, which is always a bad idea because you think you might get left, so you stand up a little too soon. Bad idea. That's getting ahead. Or you could be a little late in folding or in unfolding and finding your balance when you land. And then the stiffness is going to make it harder for you to go with whatever your horse does. If he gives you a great big bascule in the air, or he does some acrobatics, he stretches, you're going to find it harder to go with him because the stiffness locks up all your joints. And it also makes it harder for you to sink down in your ankles and absorb shock, especially on landing. And I always wince when when a rider lands hollow backed, because there are no springs and the back takes a pounding. And over time, you will find you have real problems. You can have to see the chiropractor if you ride hollow backed an awful lot of the time. So
the horse too, I'm guessing as well, right?
Well, the horse is going to go, oh, no, my rider is stiff all the time. And if they're a really sensitive horse or they have some back issues, your hollow back certainly won't help that. And it probably isn't going to make your horse buck you off, but it will certainly trigger any stiffness he has. It won't make him comfortable. And if you have a horse who is right on the edge of, can I tolerate this rider or not? Hollow back might be the straw that makes the camel buck.
Or horse.
Or horse.
Yeah. So our next illustration is the Pilates breath. Is that one way that we can help riders?
This is one way we can help. Now, you have to teach the Pilates breath with the rider sitting up. We can't teach it in 2-point or a jumping seat because you have to find some anatomical points that are a lot easier to do sitting up. But the Pilates breath is one way to help get rid of excess curve in your back. You can do this sitting in a chair, or you can do it standing on the ground, or you can do it sitting in the saddle. I have this rider with her feet out of the stirrups and her legs hanging down. But if you're in the saddle, you need to sit up tall like a dressage rider, not close forward like a hunter seat rider while you're working on this. And one of the things we want to do is put a hand in front of your lower belly and a hand at the back on your lower back. Sometimes it's more comfortable if you use the back of your hand, but you just want a hand back there to feel it. And then you exhale, and as you breathe out, it should be a powerful exhale, like, and it needs to momentarily send your belly button backwards towards your spine. Now, you don't hold it, and it's okay if it's just a little one. You just want to take a big enough breath that you can feel the difference. But if you breathe out and you breathe your belly button backwards, the hand that's at the back of your spine may go, wow, I felt those muscles feel thicker or wider. We say it's like your back fills up. And it means your core muscles are waking up and taking over. And the poor old back muscles that get stressed in the hollow back are going, now I can relax. So take a look and
learned about the
think about breathe your belly button backward. And you can do this if you're listening to this and you're sitting in a chair. Sit on the edge of your chair, because if you're leaning back, it won't work. Put one hand on your belly button, put the other hand behind your lower back, and try going, sending your belly button backward just momentarily. Don't hold it there.
That's a great exercise.
I call it a Pilates breath because we stole it from Pilates, and Pilates works a lot on your core muscles. But this says, come on, core muscles, get with the program. And you'll notice if you look closely, you can see that long back muscle that goes up the back. There's a chain, one on each side of your spine, and those are called multifidus. By the way, your horse has the same chain of muscles, and we sit on top of those, though there's a muscle over them. And those are the muscles that, there are other muscles too, but those muscles in particular can get really stressed if you ride with a hollow back. Now, when you ride in 2-point, I don't have a diagram of those muscles in 2-point, but when you ride in 2-point, those muscles have to become fit because they're one of the things that keep you from flopping or leaning too far forward. They help you support your body in 2-point. the better balanced you are, the less stress there is on those muscles. But you will have to have those muscles kick in and they have to do some work, or you wouldn't be able to stay in that good balanced position. The other thing you might notice is there is a little blue ball, and that represents your center of balance. And as you do the Pilates breath and you breathe your belly button backward, especially if you're standing up or you're sitting on a saddle, you may feel like, ooh, something inside me dropped down. That means you got centered. And basically your center of balance, or center of gravity, if you like, dropped a little lower in your body, and that makes you more stable. Now, when you ride in a jumping position, I don't have the center on this one, but you can look back at the jumping position if you want. We want that center to stay back and down. We do not want the center to roll up to the front of where your belly button is and hang down. So okay, can you visualize this rider's center would be back and down in the pelvis?
So
and
right about here?
Yes, it could be even a little lower, but you've made a really good place. That would be fine where it is, and it could be there, or it could be even a tad lower. But if we put the center, if we look at the hollow-backed rider, can we go back to her in a minute?
Yep.
There's a good place for the center. By the way, that would be over the feet too. Can you visualize that rider's center has dropped to the floor of the belly?
Like here.
Right about even lower, right about at the front of the belly, way down deep. Yeah. And you see how that is going to, if that's where your balance
pommel
is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's right over the pommel. And it tends to make your belly hang down and your back get hollow. And it's ahead of your feet and not in as good position as if you were able to lengthen your back. And maybe, can you imagine if this rider did a Pilates breath?
The hollow back person?
If that rider did a Pilates breath, could you see how that would help lengthen the back?
Yep.
And send the center back where it belongs.
Back here.
So Pilates breath is a little secret for this. Now we can also do things like, say, sitting in the saddle, put your hand back there and just breathe. And then when you're practicing 2-point, think about long back, especially long in the lower back, long neck. And long back and long neck is going to give you the prettier flat back that we love to see in equitation. Much better than if you hollowed your back. Even if we had somebody who slumps, I still wanted them to think long back and long neck, not hollow the back, because that's a bad place to go, even to fix a slumper.
That's such a great illustration.
Oh, good. I'm glad it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the breath.
Yep. Now we're going to be talking about head later, and how you manage your head, how you balance your head will also have an effect on whether or not you have a hollow back. Oh, there is our praying mantis rider.
Yeah. So this shows that your center here in your belly.
Gone too far. And this rider hasn't at the moment. You can see there is some hollow back there, and at the moment, she's not quite as bad as the hollow back we've been talking about.
Right.
But she's vulnerable, and a hollow back isn't going to make it better. If anything, it would make it worse.
Excellent. Pamela can't seem to fix it. So Kaylee Jaworski.
Oh,
thank you, Kaylee, for sending that. She says, when I canter, I go over the pommel and I can't seem to fix it. Any advice? Yes. You're at the right place, Kaylee. Thank you so much.
All right. Let's, and are you talking about in 2-point that you go over the pommel?
Well, it's going to say yes.
Okay.
I would say 2 and over coming up to the fences.
Can we go to the next photo? Because I think that's going to be the one that fixes her. I think the next one is our seatbelt picture, and I think that's going to be the one that will fix it for Kaylee.
I love that seatbelt analogy. You know, it's so hard for riders to understand how to keep their seat, as you say, centered and down in the saddle, and they have such a tendency to stand up in their stirrups and pop right out of them.
Yes. Can we flip to that picture for her?
I think she's trying to find it right now.
Oh, that's all right. It should be the next one, but
Oh, is she frozen? She might be frozen. I don't see her moving. Oh,
Oh, I
she's
think
not
so.
moving. There must be something going on with the power. Well, we'll come back to that.
Computer freeze. Okay, we will come back to that.
We'll come back.
To answer Kaylee's question, what you need to do, let's go back to our, oh, wait a minute, we can't. We're stuck with this picture.
Oh, here we are. Oh, she'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Technical difficulties.
Yeah,
so to answer the question, for Kaylee, what you need to do is send your center of balance in your body farther back and down, and we'll show you that in a minute. And it can help to imagine that you have a seatbelt across your lap, not a shoulder harness. And that seatbelt kind of connects you to the saddle. It will let you go up in 2-point, but not very far up. And if you feel yourself going too far up, tighten your imaginary seatbelt and send your seat bones backward. This is not like getting left behind or hitting your horse in the back. It's a matter of sending your seat bones back until your body is balanced over your feet instead of ahead of your feet.
And that's when you start sinking in your riding position, right, Susan? That's when they feel, because without that, they don't have the spring where they can sink back. And instead of sinking out back, they tip forward over the front of the horse.
Yep. And it usually comes from good intentions. People are trying to get up off the horse, like the instructor said, get up off his back. But if you stand up too far forward, it's too much of a good thing. What you're really looking for is balance with your seat farther back than you think. And as your seat gets farther back, your stirrups are directly under your center of balance. And you feel like if we ran a straight line straight up from your stirrups, it should just about cut your body in half. And if most of your body gets in front of the stirrups, then you're a lot out of balance. So that idea of wearing a seatbelt and sliding your seat bones farther back over the saddle, but still off the saddle, I hope will give you just the balance you need. And of course, in the canter, there's a lot of rocking and there's some thrust. So you have to say, I'm going to rock in the balance point. I'm not going to let the thrust push me up and forward too much.
All right, so I just got a heads up from Laura. Her internet is off. I'm going to go to your email and find that photo and see if we can share it.
Okay, sorry about that. We can talk about it even if we don't have the photos.
Right. Well, and I'll see if I can find them too. I'll see if I can get them.
And it may come back, and if it does, we'll come back and show Haley and everybody else that picture. So let's see. We are at 128. Should we go on to talking about the head? Is that the next thing on our agenda?
I think it was.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm in here trying to find that email right now.
Okay.
So let me see what I can find.
I can go ahead and talk about head and eyes, and I'm assuming the email or the internet will come back. You know, everybody send good thoughts to the internet.
Right, good thoughts.
But in the meantime, if we were sitting in the barn aisle and we didn't have phones and internet, we can talk about this anyway. So next one is the head and eyes. And this is the essential, this is the important thing. Many years ago, I worked for the master of a fox hunt. And part of my job was to take out new fox hunting riders. And they had to ride in what we called the hilltopper field, where they could trot if they didn't want to gallop, and they could go through gates if they weren't ready to jump yet. But my job is to bring them back alive and hopefully on top of their horses. So the thing that made the biggest difference was eyes up. I wasn't there to give them a riding lesson, but people would get out there and they go, oh my God, this is different. This is not like the arena. And we would say, take a breath and eyes up and eyes on a target. And the more they got their eyes up, the more confident they got, and they came back and they even enjoyed it, and they come fox hunting again next week. But if they were looking down, oh dear, that's where the trouble started. So that's extreme. Usually you don't have to go fox hunting. And in our country, in our hunt country, we had drainage ditches. Some of the ditches you had to ride down, jump a little ditch at the bottom, and then ride up again. And those were enough to make new fox hunters swallow their gum. So the law was, when you start down the drainage ditch, put your eyes on the top of the one across from you. and keep your eyes on that. And I had one lady who went across it and she said, I didn't even see the water.
Oh no.
That's why she's still aboard and still fox hunting. So eyes up is really essential. And if you can't think of any other thing, either breathe or eyes up, or both if you can do it, is probably the thing that will save your bacon the most often when you're jumping.
What are some of your favorite techniques you've heard other people and yourself using for teaching riders how to look forward or where they're going instead of looking down?
Okay. I learned a lot about eyes from George Morris back in the 70s, because I used to go to his instructor and his trainer clinics. And George, in his inimitable manner, talked about what he called eye control. He says, they're your eyes, you get to control them. Well, George's teaching style would never work for me, but boy, what he teaches is absolutely right.
Right.
So one way you get eye control is you find a target, and the target should be at eye level for the rider on the horse, not eye level for the instructor on the ground. So you look at the target and keep your eyes on the target as you ride. And I eventually will show you the diagram, but I have, Laura's back and the internet is back. Good.
Yay!
So finish this exercise, and then we'll find the diagram of it. You keep your eyes on the target. You ride down the line at a walk or a trot. You come to a halt at the end of the line in the corner with your eyes still on the target. And then you check your horse. Is your horse absolutely straight, head, shoulders, front feet, hind feet, even his tail, in line with the target? If he is, you give him a pat, and you turn and you ride to the next target. If he isn't lined up with the target, you move him over until he is perfectly lined up. Then you give him a pat and you ride on. And if you do that in each corner in the ring, if I have a class, obviously, if there's somebody using that corner, pass them and go to the next corner. But if you do that several corners, you'll find your horse is getting much better at going to your target where your eyes are aiming, and you're getting so that looking at the target becomes more automatic. And that's a real simple exercise, but it's essential. And it's one of the first ones that George would teach in a jumping clinic or a teacher's clinic. And it's one of the first ones I teach in jumping.
That's a great one.
Do we want to drop back for a second and take a look at the rider with the seatbelt?
Let's see if she's able to find it yet. She just got back on. She's on hotspot right now.
All right.
Something's going on with it's Mercury retrograde, everybody. Everything electrical is being affected, it seems.
Well, that's all right. Maybe it has to do with the solar eclipse they had over in Asia and Africa. Who knows?
Right. Everything else, we'll just blame it on everything. All right, so let's go on to the next topic.
About eyes?
You what? Eyes.
All right. One other thing I'm going to talk about with eyes, and this is straight out of centered riding. I don't have a diagram for it, but it is soft eyes versus hard eyes. So let's say you religiously practice the George Morris eye exercise, and you are used to having your eyes on a target. There are two kinds of eyes. Well, actually, there's three. There's soft eyes, and there's hard eyes, and there's no eyes. No eyes is when you look down, you look at the sky, you look at your mother, you look at the dog. No eyes is no good at all. So it's better to have hard eyes than soft eyes. Now, hard eyes are what you get when you try too hard. Has anybody ever gotten in trouble trying too hard?
Well, they can just do it looking at the horse's head, right? I mean, you know how people get so focused on what their horse is.
And even if you have your eyes on the correct target, which is not your horse or your hands, it's the target in line with your jump, the center of the jump, and it's your eye level. But even if you have your eyes on the target, if you are squinting, staring, glaring with hard eyes, it tightens you up. And where you sit, if you want to try it, this is going to look funny, but if I hold my finger up way out in front of me and I stare at the end of my finger, do you notice it gets hard to breathe? And after a while, you get tunnel vision and you can't see anything but the finger? That's hard eyes. And it'll sneak up on you when you are trying too hard. Now, just blink or shake your head or breathe or do whatever you have to break the spell. If you put the finger out there again, and this time you say, all right, I can see the finger. My eyes are aimed at my target. But why I'm also, see if I can get my finger where I can see it. I don't know where it went. There we go. I am also looking at a big circle around it. I am looking at the wall beyond the finger, the floor, the ceiling, the sides. If I was in a riding ring, I would see the whole end of the indoor ring, and I would see maybe the other horses, even though your eyes are focused on the target. How does that make you feel? Is it easier to breathe? Less
Feel
tense?
like you're part of everything.
So, yes, and it, believe it or not, it opens up your other senses, especially your ability to feel. So you can have eyes in the correct place, trying very, very hard to be the perfect rider. And if it's hard eyes, it's better than no eyes. It's certainly better than looking down. But I want you to think about somebody great. Let's take BZ Madden. Do you suppose when BZ Madden rides to a jump, she has to think, got to keep my eyes up, got to keep my eyes up. I really got to keep my eyes up. I'll bet she doesn't. She just automatically puts her eyes on the target and goes, because she's jumped how many thousand jumps in her career. So if you were jumping something that was really easy for you, let's say you normally jump, oh, I don't know, 2 feet 6 or 2 feet 9, and you're jumping a hole on the ground or a cross rail, I'll bet you could put your eyes on your target and breathe and have relaxed eyes, even though they're staying where they need to be. Now, if you usually jump 2 feet 6 and I set a 3-foot jump, a spread with fire underneath it, I'll bet you would need hard eyes, if you could jump it at all, to keep your eyes on target and not look down at the bottom of that jump. So when it gets really stressful, you may have to use hard eyes, and that's a whole lot better than no eyes looking down. But if you can, cultivate soft eyes, because that's going to help your feel, your timing, your breathing. It even helps you see a distance.
Now, do you
Hard
have
eyes
any,
get you stuck on that.
with respect to this hard eyes, soft eyes, do you have any illustrations that we went over for that, for those ones, or is that something different?
I do, but I didn't send it in to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, I think
can
that was
email you one real quick.
we have this picture, the illustration with the seatbelt.
Okay,
do you
here's
want
the
to speak
seatbelt one.
about that? Yeah.
Was it Kaylee who asked about, let's zoom in on the seatbelt a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think Kaylee was the one who said she often gets up over her pommel when she's cantering.
Right.
Here's a rider in 2-point, and you can see the rider is folding, not
Standing.
folding, standing up. And the imaginary seatbelt is reminding the rider not to stand up, but to fold over the seatbelt.
I think
that may help her.
Profound illustration. This is just profound. It's changed so many people I've talked to. It has changed the way they're teaching their jumping position, because before they didn't get the fact that the rider's centers were going over the front of the pommel. But this illustration,
right,
it makes it so clear.
We really don't want riders to hit the horse in the back. So sometimes we say, stand up, get up off his kidneys, don't bump on your horse's back. And the rider really wants to do it right. So often what the rider's trying to do is stand up, and they take stand up too literally, and they stand up way too far forward. So I think what we need to do is teach them to fold, and remember that the folding in the right place is more important than just standing up.
Right. Well, Susan, we have another question here, and this is where they can go for more illustrations. So Susan has a Facebook page, and you can see it. We've shared it on the comments here. Yeah. It's Susan Harris Clinician. What is the whole title of it there, Susan?
It's Susan E Harris Clinician. If you just look for Susan Harris, you'll probably only get the Susan Harris who does soap operas, which is not me.
I forgot about here.
Susan E Harris Clinician.
We have
some of those illustrations are not in any book yet. I am working on a book. Hate to tell you, it takes a long time for a book to come out. but some of the ones like the Seatbelt are in there. But you will find some of my illustrations and ideas in the U.S. Pony Club manuals. They have books 1, 2, and 3, and there's a jumping section in all of them, and some but not all of the ideas, if not exactly the same illustrations, are in those books.
The Pony Club has put out a phenomenal set of manuals. And I remember when you rewrote those Pony Club manuals, you changed the life of so many people in the United States. It was amazing. Thank you.
Well, the Pony Club gets credit for that because they decided they needed manuals they needed 3, not just 1, and they needed manuals that were written for North American riders. So way back in the 90s, we wrote the U.S. Pony Club manuals, and then we wound up revising them, just about 3 or 4 years ago. So they've all been brought up to date somewhat. And they wanted, it let us put an awful lot more in. And there's quite a lot of North American hunter seat that made it into the Pony Club manuals.
Yes.
Okay, so we have another question here, Susan. I have a rider who follows the horse's neck with her hands over the jump, but then snaps her elbows and hands down on landing. How do you help with this?
Ooh, I wish I could see her do it, but I'm guessing.
Yeah, you're going to have to send us a little video, Kendra, for maybe next week, or we could ask Susan to comment on this as well.
Though, that she feels like she's losing her balance on landing, even if she's not in danger of not. That sounds like a defensive move.
Yep.
So what I would have her do is think about landing on her feet and absorbing shock in her joints, because she may be sort of reaching for the neck or making a move as if she was reaching for the neck to support her, even if she's not quite getting to the neck. So one of the things you could have her do is hop off the bottom step of the mounting block, not the top. Hop off the bottom step of the mounting block and notice how her 3 big joints, ankles, knees, and hips, take up the shock when she lands on her feet. Do that a few times so it gets into the muscle memory. And then say, now on the horse, I want you to feel that land on your feet feeling that you got when you landed from the mounting block. If it was, and do it over very, very little jump, even a ground pole or a cavaletti, until she starts landing in her feet better. Now, if she is capable, and this depends on the rider, and if the horses, you've got a nice quiet school horse who would do it, she could try riding no hands in a chute and landing with her arms out like an airplane, or what's even a little bit safer would be put your hands over the neck, but not touching the neck, so that if you had to, you could grab the neck. But the arms out will really give you the confidence that, my gosh, I am landing in my feet. My body is taking care of my balance. And she does have to make sure her eyes are up. If this is associated with looking down, you have to fix one problem at a time. So I'd give her the eye exercise if that's part of the issue, and make sure the eyes are working pretty well, and then give her the hop down off the mounting block, land on your feet exercise. And don't try to teach both of those at once, even if they're both part of the issue. But if she can land no hands, then you can say, now I want you to ride, but I want you to keep your reins loose and put your hands in a correct release. But you have to be able to do the release anchoring your hands, but not leaning on your hands. But the fact that you said they snapped down
snapped her elbows, but then snaps her elbows and hands down on landing.
She's like ducking.
That makes me think she is reacting to feeling a loss of balance.
Yeah.
Right.
When they snap, that's a quick remove. And if she's snapping her elbows down or something like that, that makes me think she's holding tight up in her chest or not breathing, or possibly she is pinching with her knees, but that sounds defensive to me. So I would say make sure her eyes are where they should be first, and then try hop off the mounting block, land on the feet, see if she goes, oh, that's different, and then see if you can convert that to.
That's a great idea, that exercise.
Okay, how about this one here? What can I do if I put weight? What can I do if I put weight in your wrist when I land from a fence to correct the issue? I feel like I'm almost blocked my horse with short release. If I throw too much release, she is loose and sloppy.
Okay. What I would suggest is place your hands either for a short release or a medium release, not a super long release. And you're going to place your hands side by side on top of the crest and push on the crest with a straight wrist, as if you could push the horse's neck away from you. One of the things this does is it pushes your hips back over the saddle, like we've been talking about sinking back over the saddle. And it also keeps you from rotating your wrists. We call it a cocked wrist, and that can nip a horse in the mouth. And it keeps you from lying on your hands. You can't actually push the horse's neck away. But if you imagine that you are pressing with straight forearms firmly, push that horse's neck away, it's going to push your seat back over the center of the saddle so that you land in better position. And it's also going to keep you from throwing your upper body weight downward on your hands. Think of it as a forward push. And I don't mean run your hands up and down the horse's neck like a jockey riding a finish. You place your hands in one place, and at that spot, shove the horse's neck as if you could push it away from you, and it'll push your hips back.
Okay, April says, when I first started getting back into riding, I could only canter in the 2-point. Now I can only sit the canter. And when I try to get off her back, I feel way out of balance. Ideas.
Well, the good thing is you had it before. It's sort of like the pendulum swung a little too far, and good that you can sit the canter. So the first thing I would say is check your stirrup length. Make sure that your stirrup is a good length for riding 2-point, because sometimes people ride with stirrups a little bit long for flat work. And if your stirrup is too long for a good 2-point, that's going to make it impossible for you to get up and ride that. And then I would say just practice a little bit of jogging in 2-point or slow trot in 2-point to make sure that you can wiggle your knees. If you can't wiggle your knees in and out slightly in 2-point, that means you're gripping with your knees and you're slightly out of balance. So check to see that you've got the real balance point in 2-point in trot first. And then when you canter, one of the things you have to do is there's kind of a circular roll. It's a little bit like a merry-go-round horse, which I'm sure you feel when you sit the canter. So when you are cantering in 2-point, you're going to let that roll sink your heels down and back, down and back, down and back. They relax a little in between, but they never relax all the way to up. And it will roll your inside knee just a little bit on the saddle flap, as if, suppose you had a sponge on the ends between your knee and the flap, it would follow the saddle. Can't say anything. It would polish the saddle in a circle. And you may have to, in canter, try a little more upright, a little close your body angle, open your body angle, play with it a tiny bit at a time. And when you find a spot where you go, oh, I can ride that one, you found the right place.
Excellent. So we do have more questions, but I want to move on to the next topic about your head position. Did you cover that when I was in La La Land?
Let's grab the photo of the rider's head and eyes. How are we doing on time? I've got 10 minutes, so I need to leave some time. This one shows that the rider's head weighs as much as a bowling ball, and your eyes direct your head. So it really matters because you have the weight of a bowling ball on the end of your spine. And believe me, your horse can feel when that bowling ball changes. All right, let's move on to the next one. Here's rider looking up, rider looking down, rider looking level, looking down, and looking up. Looking level is going to help balance your bowling ball and therefore balance your whole body.
Right.
Looking down, you already know, messes up your balance. And it is possible to look too high. George Morris himself roared at me in a clinic one time, "There are no jumps in the clouds, Harris." And he wasn't nice, but he was correct, because I'm an overdoer, and I was overdoing looking up because he said to look up. So looking level is a lot more productive than over looking up. Let's look at the next one. Look at the next. There we go. This is what it does to your body when you look up, look down, or look level. First rider is looking level, and it's easy to maintain. This is a rider sitting in the saddle, But it's easy to maintain a good position whether you're in the saddle or in 2-point. Looking down drops your head, drops your eyes, and it rounds your back. And because your body is heading toward the horse's neck, your knees will have to grab to save you. And very often that causes a pivoting leg where the heels go back, body goes forward, heels go back, and you're pivoting on your knees. And we'll have a little more to say about that when we get the next one. But looking down, there's nothing good about looking down and a lot bad. And then the looking up too high can get the hollow back. And here's why you don't want to. Here's why horses stop when riders look down. If we can zero in on the top one there, even if we can't see the bottom one first, this is the visible horse that I paint for visible horse demos. And that long muscle painted orange is the lateral oblique muscle. And you notice it runs right underneath the saddle and the rider's knees. And it runs from the horse's back to his front leg. If you lose your balance and your knees pinch and grab to save your balance, there's an acupressure spot right where your knees are. And that spot says stop. Some people even train horses to stop on purpose when they squeeze that spot. So if you squeeze it by accident, don't be surprised if your horse quits. So let's look at the bottom one. And here is the result. If you are looking down and your body grabs with the knees to keep you from falling farther down, you pinch that spot, and very often it will result in a stop. It's an you have a double whammy. You're pinching the spot that says stop, and you also put your weight a little ahead of your horse, and the two together will make a lot of horses stop. So looking up is really important for your horse's benefit, and because we want to go forward over the jump. Is that the last one? I think that's the last one on
Let
head
me
and
just check, see.
And I think a lot of this coming forward like this is an unconscious thing for the riders that do it. Don't you agree, Susan?
Yeah.
That they don't even
Yeah.
know if they're doing it until somebody tells them they're doing it, basically, or if they see it on a video or photo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that let's take a quick look at the exercise one. This is the exercise where I drew a flag in a couple of corners and a tree, and I forget what the other one was. Trees, okay? So you look at whatever you need to look at, but it must be at your eye level, and it should be straight ahead on the line you are taking. And you ride to that corner, stop in the corner, check to see if your horse has gone exactly where you mean him to go. And if he has, great, pat him and ride on. If he hasn't, move him over until he's properly lined up, and then say good boy and keep going.
Excellent exercise. I guess this would be a really good exercise if people have a tendency to cut the corners off, round the corners out, ride into that corner, ride to that focal point, stop. Are you in line with that?
And it teaches the horse to go where your eyes are looking. And it also teaches you to look where you're going. And then you can expand that exercise by doing it over ground poles, over cavaletti, and eventually over small jumps, and eventually over all jumps.
Okay, so maybe Catherine has sorry to interrupt you. Catherine has this question. Would this be the technique for turning your head to look for the next jump but still maximize the use of the ring around the corner? I think that was for a previous exercise you were talking about.
Well, this one actually it would refer to this exercise too.
Okay.
You need to make sure that you don't turn your head until you're ready to turn. So if you are riding down the line and you cut your head across to one side to look at the jump that's over on the other side of the ring, you're telling your horse turn right now. If you have soft eyes, which we talked about earlier, you have a much wider range of vision, and you'll be able to see that jump across the ring because you have that big wide angle vision, even though your eyes are on your focal point. So you don't have to turn your head prematurely. But I do sometimes see riders cut their head looking for a line, and a horse will very often make a bobble or drop his shoulder in that direction because he feels you turn your head. So keep your eyes where you want your horse to go. But if you can use the soft eyes we talked about earlier, you're going to get a lot more. You'll get what you want.
Hi, Donna. Thank you, Donna, for making this comment. Could you explain light a match as you approach a jump, blow out a candle as the horse goes over the jump, the reason and benefit to the horse and rider?
Okay. If you blow out a match as you go, or blow out a candle as you go over a jump, you have to breathe. You can't blow a match out without breathing. Many people get excited when they jump. If they have a little fear or tension, they certainly will want to hold their breath, because that's natural when you're tight and you're tense. And sometimes they just get excited, like they're going to jump, I'm going to jump,
Right.
and they hold their breath. So if you make it a habit of blow out a match over every ground pole, every cross rail, every little jump, your body eventually starts to associate jumping with breathing.
Right.
And you would like that to become automatic.
So we have this lovely photo as well, speaking of jumping.
Oh, this is one I saw just this week. I wanted to put it up. Number one, this guy has beautiful eyes, doesn't he? Eyes straight ahead. He's riding a jumper. He knows exactly where he's going, and you can see by his eye direction where the next fence probably is. The other thing I want you to notice is he is folded up over his saddle. His hips are back, his shoulders are forward, and if you extended his stirrup leather straight up, it would cut his body in two. So to me, this is a great example of American jumping seat. The other thing is, look at the lovely soft release. That horse is happily stretching his neck, reaching out. To me, this is a picture of excellent control and balance with the horse. So it's a good picture to have in your mind, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a soft following release, and it's not the loopy rein. He's a jumper. Maybe he's doing the jump off. He's got to do a turn or something after. But there's nowhere where that horse is being hindered by this rider at all. It's a soft following hand, so you can have a release and follow the horse's mouth and still be a release.
And by the way, this rider is Esther Sims. I hope I'm correct that he's from Virginia, and his daughter India Sims graciously gave me permission to use it. So I want to thank them, because I think he's a great idea. All right, so I see we have a question here. When jumping, how can you as a rider not land too early? Landing too early is almost certainly your lower legs are getting ahead of you, like your heels are going out in front a little bit. And one of the problems is that our stirrups are on a pivot. We have the foot in the stirrup iron, we have the stirrup leather, and then it goes up to a stirrup bar, and the whole stirrup will pivot forward very easily, or it will pivot backward. So we have to have the foot in balance underneath you, because if the foot goes out ahead, the stirrup will go out ahead, and the whole business can swing more forward. So if you're landing early, if your seat's contacting the saddle too soon, I'm going to bet $1 to a donut that it's the foot getting out ahead of you.
Right.
So the thing that cures that is, number one, checking the stirrup length with your instructor and making sure that you have a good, correct jumping length that lets you bend your knees, get the correct angles, because if the stirrups are too long, it's really hard to keep them. Oh, there she said she saw them. I think India put that picture up on Father's Day. Anyway, stirrups too long will really bite you. Second thing is, you want to feel like you can stand up in 2-point and wiggle your knees on the flat at a trot. If you can wiggle your knees with your arms out to your side like an airplane, you have found the balanced jumping position. If you can't quite wiggle your knees, open and close your hip angle just a tiny bit at a time until you find the zone where you think, that's better. And then the other thing I'm going to say is, if you tend to land too soon, do the exercise of hopping down off the bottom step of the mounting block, not the top step, and notice your joints, your springs as you land on your feet, because that's going to give your body the muscle memory of what it feels like to land on your feet standing up.
That is
not let
such
your
a
feet get
simple
out in
but
front
great
sitting down.
exercise, Susan. Susan, that's an amazing, something as simple as that is the basis of everything, because they have to land and stay springy. And to do it from a jumping stop or a little step, that's the perfect place to start to teach anybody.
Yep, jump off the bottom step. I mean, I've had kids who would jump off the top step, but don't take that chance. You really want to learn, not show off. So
Right.
jump off the bottom step and notice what it does when you land. And then you need to recreate that on your horse. So as you're going to the jump, tell yourself, land on my feet, land on my feet.
Yeah, I think I was taught this a while ago, same probably as you, Randy, but and I use that a lot, particularly with people who have a tendency to get in the chair seat with their foot out in front of
Mm-hmm.
them. I find that that simple exercise really identifies that how they have to get over top of their leg.
Right.
Yeah. Now we're kind of running out of time, but could
Yes,
we look at the very last photo, the one of
yes,
my students back in the 1970s?
yes.
It's an old black and white photo because this exercise would be good if you have the horse to do it. Yay, India, thank you for letting us use that picture. He's a good guy. He's a great rider. All right, this is way back in the 70s. And my students here are doing jumping with stirrups, but no reins. And the horses are used to it, so I didn't have to have a closed chute. They go down, and they're really good guys about it. And you can see they're coming in with reins, but they have their reins tied, and then they stand up, or they balance up. Well, you'll see the first rider is actually standing up a little too far. And no, she didn't fall off, but you will learn really quickly. And these are small jumps, they need to be. And we have already practiced ground poles and teeny tiny little cross rails, and they've moved up to this, and she's in the process of learning, oops, that's too far up. And she can always grab the neck or grab the mane if she had to. Now you need a safe chute, you need the jump set at the proper distance, and you need a horse that is calm and quiet that will go through this,
Exactly right.
not the wild, crazy jumper. So ask your instructor about practicing through a chute, no hands. But if you get to where you can ride 2-point through a chute, no hands, that will really help your balance. And I think sometimes with people getting ready for shows, they don't always do all these old exercises that they used to teach them back in the U.S. Cavalry.
It's
And
true,
this
but
is one that
what
will
I've been
really
talking to
help
some
the balance.
judges, and what we've noticed as we're talking to some of the judges, Susan, is many of the trainers have taken the time during this pandemic to go back to doing the basics. We had one jumping judge, that was Patty last week, was saying at the show she just judged in Chicago. It was so amazing to her to see so many people actually doing automatic releases that she didn't see that
It's
before.
starting, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. That's great.
Now,
That's one good
Susan,
thing to come out of the pandemic.
Yes.
yes. So, Susan, in addition to doing I call this the airplane over the jumps.
Mhm.
Now, you were explaining to me before what your military cavalry officer instructor used to make you do when you were going through this, when you
Well,
were
this
doing
was an
this.
expedition thing, and we had to do this when I took the riding instructor course. My instructor was Captain Sam Hendrickson. He was one of the last graduates of the U.S. Cavalry School at Fort Riley, and he made us do this as the graduation exercise. And certainly we practiced. We had to go down through a chute that had about, I want to say, probably about five, maybe 2 or 2.5 foot jumps in it, and they were set one stride apart. And you had to do it with no reins, no stirrups. Well, we had practiced and practiced and practiced. And then for the exhibition, we had to go down through that chute, unbuttoning and taking off your riding jacket. And at the end of the chute, your horse turned around and you whirled the jacket over your head, and you went back down through the chute, putting the jacket back on, and all 3 buttons were supposed to be buttoned by the time we got to the end. I survived that. I did that once. I could not do it again to save my life.
That's amazing. We've never
And do I ask
carry a
students to
saddle
do it?
about
No.
Oh, I know.
Right?
In the military days, they had them take the saddles off while they're riding. I'm like, holy cow.
Oh yeah, at Morven Park they had to do the take off the jacket thing, and the British actually had them undo their saddles and ride bareback and put the saddles under their arm.
Wow.
I don't think they had them resaddle and fasten the girth, but there
Right.
were amazing things that they made the military do.
I
don't
call that
recommend that you try that one.
Crazy.
Yes,
I call that things not to do in your pony club exam.
Right.
exactly, exactly. And don't go home and say, "Well, she did it and she's still alive,"
Exactly.
because I ran
Susan
the riding
here
instructor
says,
school for 10 years, and I did make
oh,
my students do that as a graduation exercise.
now if there's
Oh.
anybody listening here who would like to have Susan come back, just say yay in the comments and we shall get Susan back again, because we didn't really even touch the last topic and we just ran out of time. But this
We
is
had
our guest
good
today's
questions.
Our guest today is Susan Harris, a renowned horse person, artist, riding instructor, and international clinician who conducts centered riding clinics and anatomy and motion demonstration. She's the author and illustrator of Horse, Gaits, Balance, and Movement, Horsemanship in Pictures, Grooming to Win, and the U.S. Pony Club Manuals of Horsemanship, and more. Susan apprenticed with Sally Swift, the founder of Centered Riding, and she teaches clinics in centered riding, anatomy and motion, and equine and rider biomechanics. Thank you so much for coming today, Susan. It's lovely to spend some time with you, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love talking horses and especially talking jumping with instructors and with people who are interested in jumping. So this is a joy. And thank you for running such a great educational program.
Oh, we're so honored to even have you to be a part of this. You have no idea, Susan, to have somebody of you've broken down the system in ways that we know that the instructors that are seeing this is a profound change in how they've been teaching their riding position. You've changed their lives, and that's a pretty amazing thing. Now we have some more shows coming up this week, Laura. Let's see, on Friday we have, let's see if I can find her. Well, on Friday for the Jumping Instructors Live, we've got Darla Walker Rider, and she's a master level certified instructor and certifier with the Certified Horsemanship Association, and we're tackling a tough topic, as you'll agree too, Susan. It's protecting your horse business. What professionals need to know that no one may have told them.
Yeah, that's an important one to have.
So we'll be here on Friday. Again, you can listen, you can watch live, you can join in, or you can watch the replay.
And Monday, what's happening Monday? And the Day Juke show is Kevin and Diane Babington. So they're going to be interviewing them. And then next Wednesday, we'll see what happens. I haven't got anybody lined up yet.
Cool.
Okay, so thank you so much. And we're going to see you on Friday with, who's on Friday, Randy?
Darla Walker Rider.
And we'll see you then.
We'll see you then.
Thank you for having
so
me.
much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan.